Good day, trainers, and welcome back to another episode of Future Sights, which is, of course, a soundproof podcast production where we bring you. Well, I mean, I guess they're technically still in the past, but that was the whole idea, right? It's some matches that were in the past. The ones we've been doing are a little bit more recent because we're all real engaged in the 2023 format. And we've got you guys a good match here from the most recent Oceania International Championships. But before we get started, I am, of course, Brendan Lewis, and I am joined by my co-host, TPCI caster Major Bowman, of course, Jake Muller, who you may have seen on stream this last weekend. And I have the distinct pleasure of having him here, which is his first home, just so we're clear. I gave him on loan to TPCI.
This is true. Yeah. It was in my rider that Brendan had to approve any appearances I make, and luckily he let me go to Knoxville.
This time.
Yeah.
We'll see. You're on thin ice. Anyway, we've got a match for you guys from OCIC, and hopefully you got the opportunity to watch because I thought that was a really exciting event. It was like almost difficult to pick a match because of how many good matches there were. And it was dominated by Americans, so that was cool to watch as well. But we ended up picking a match that I believe was the win-in match from day 2.
Yeah.
Between the two 10-3 players at the time, which is between an American, Collin Heier, and I believe a French player, Aurelien Soula.
Yeah, this was one of the favorite matches I watched from the stream, mostly because it was like super back and forth, and there were a lot of like very explosive turns, which I always find fun to watch.
I think that's true, and I think that's honestly pretty reflective of the format right now, which we can talk about. We'll look at some teams and talk about what's going on, but I think that this is like one of the more offensive-oriented metagames that I recall in quite some time, where there are some metagames that I honestly recall fondly, and these are like my more favorite metagames where you're really like throwing out chip damage throughout the course of the match, and it really comes down to like who positions correctly to take 1 or 2 knockouts towards the end of the game. But this is like you've got to choose when and how to sack off your Pokemon and get like big damage down so that you're making like very large trades instead of small trades throughout the course of the match.
I think there are some teams that played a little bit more slowly. I can't, like, none of them immediately come to mind, but I don't think the format as a whole, well, like, you know what I mean? I don't think it's like as like knockdown drag out as like some other formats we've had, but it's true to an extent. Yeah, exactly. Like Iron Hands, Arcanine, and Moongus, that kind of stuff plays on more slowly, but you will see none of those 3 Pokemon in this game.
None of those things are in this match. Yeah, so this is a very explosive set. So we'll talk about the players a little bit. Collin being a household name, of course, his time goes all the way back into, oh man, when did he start playing? In like 2011, 2012?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something way back where he ended up having his biggest finish in 2014 where he top 4'd Worlds and then has, top cuts all over like every potential large tournament you could dream up. I think he's got 1 or 2 regional championships.
At
least
2.
I
know.
Okay.
He's won Madison twice. I know.
Okay. Yep. So at least 2. And I believe Aurelien is actually a newer player, but basically has the international scene on notice already this year. After making a huge run through this tournament. Obviously, he's at his winning in to top cut here, and then top 4ing Bochum this past weekend. So 2 really strong players, obviously, which you would hope to see at this point in the tournament. So it's exciting to have this matchup. But we'll talk a little bit about their teams. As you can kind of see with your eyes, there's like a 4-mon mirror here. And obviously, one of the big thing that jumps out is just kind of how much offense is packed into both sides here.
Yeah, I mean, both sides have a mouse hold, which is something that kind of exploded at OCIC. We hadn't really seen a whole lot of it other than like mouse hold annihilate stuff. But there was a lot of solo mouse hold. I think on day 2, there was 3 mouse hold annihilate and then 5 more mouse hold on top of that at this tournament. So mouse hold showed up big. I know there are multiple in top 8 too. I think Collin and Rog have both had it, and there may be one more I'm forgetting specifically in top 8. But the rest of their teams are also somewhat similar. Like they both have Dragonite, Iron Bundle, and Great Tusk. And then they have a Steel type, and then they have a Special Attacker. I guess Fluttermane. I think Fluttermane in particular is kind of tough to deal with if you're Aurelien here, unless your like Golden Go is very well positioned and you like force it to Shadow Ball or something. Just because there's no Fairy Resist other than like the Volcarona and Golden Go gets threatened, and Volcarona I don't think is good into Collin's team at all. Like Dragonite, Iron Bundle, Assault Vest, King Gambit, Mousehold, like it's really, really hard to bring. So the Flutter Mane, I think in particular, is well positioned.
Yeah, I agree, and I think kind of like the dynamic that Mousehold brings to teams, especially offense teams, is like really interesting because Friend Guard like basically forms the defensive backbone of both of these teams, if you want to even call it that, because it's just like a whole bunch of things that can like either set up or do a lot of damage, and then you just like stick Mousehold next to it, and trying to like position your own Mousehold to like enable your selected attacker while also kind of like playing around opposing Mousehold is basically like kind of the name of the game with these kinds of teams, and is definitely going to be the name of the game for this matchup.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. All right, well then let's get on into it here. And Collin goes immediately with the King Gambit lead, which I think is kind of like, if you just look, you squint your eyes and you look at tight matchups, like King Gambit is really good in pretty much everything except for Great Tusk, so it seems like a smart bring. Yeah,
especially in this lead, like oh, that's a super. Okay, I forgot that they super fanged the Flutter Mane there. I think that's smart though, because this Terra Blast probably KOs regardless. And like if you Terra just steal, then the Terra Blast knocks it out still, or if
KOs
you switch
anyway.
out, yeah. Like I don't think anything coming in could take that either. So a good first turn. Like the King Gambit looked like it was really well positioned into like Mousehold Dragonite, two things that can't really touch it because there's no low kick on Aurelien's Dragonite. But even then, like that was kind of a sad turn for the King Gambit.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I was expecting more damage, and I think that's kind of, you see the value of, well, I think the Dragonites have multi-scale is one, right? I think this one is
Aurelien's is Aurelien's is inner focus, Collin's is multi-scale.
It's inner focus, okay, so it's just Friend Guard then, where the Dazzling Gleam, when it's not super effective, followed by even the Insurance is like barely doing like 2/3 to Dragonite. Yeah. So now Collin's like immediately forced into a position where he has to use like kind of an interesting Terra option to just try and knock out Dragonite immediately, and like if he doesn't, that's like pretty much it.
Yeah, I like this play. Like the Terra Icy Wind makes a lot of sense if you think it's gonna KO Dragonite, but I think
just doesn't quite.
Given Friend Guard and Assault Vest, I don't even think, like I kind of doubt that was even a roll because that Dragonite's gonna be super bulky. I don't like the Sucker Punch, like. That's the one thing I wasn't a huge fan of here, because I definitely respect like the Terra Icy Wind.
Well, I think it's like kind of like like to cover the play that Aurelien made turn 1, which is like Sucker plus Terra Blast is going to KO everything on his entire team, so that like at least covers, well, maybe not King Gambit, I don't even know, but it at least covers like an immediate knockout into the King Gambit slot. I don't know, that was my only thought, because I was like kind of had to scratch my head when I watched this as well, and then I was kind of like, okay, Super Fang plus like a Terraflying Terra Blast probably knocks out potentially even King Gambit.
No, I don't think there's any way.
You don't think so?
You think Terra Blast does half?
I don't know.
No. No. Absolutely.
Wait, is it carrying anything that could though? Does it have like, or it's just no, because it's Ice Spinner, Earthquake, and
no, it's Ice Spinner,
Ice Spinner, Extreme Speed,
Dragon Claw.
So everything is resisted. Okay, I don't know. Then I have no idea. That was my only thought. Empty.
I think I don't know. It covers like, look, yeah, because I feel like I don't know. It covers the Super Fang. You're right there.
It covers Super Fang, but for what we don't know, I guess is the point.
I think regardless though, like the Icy Wind not KOing is kind of game, just because at that point you don't really have a way to keep up with the damage Aurelien's put out. Like the critical hit Terra Blast, I'm pretty sure mattered. I don't think Bundle gets knocked out by that.
I would think it does. Bundle's pretty bulky on the physical side.
Yeah. So I would imagine that it doesn't just drop to 1 Terra Blast. Otherwise,
I wouldn't think so, unless it's like Choice Band, maybe.
Yeah, it's a Assault Vest though.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. Regardless, like with or without that critical hit, I mean, it would probably just drop to Extreme Speed after, you no longer have the resources to match the damage that Aurelien's putting out, like especially with a Sash, Great Tusk, and a full health Iron Bundle in the back.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like a last ditch sort of like Terra Ice. If it does enough damage, then maybe I have like kind of an some end game potential. But once it misses, the game is pretty much over there. So it doesn't. I don't know. And then Collin takes a lot of time the last couple turns here, because I think he's just trying to figure out what he wants to do game 2.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's pretty much it. Yeah. So
Is he
we're
going
gonna
to his
look.
home menu?
He did it a couple times.
I know.
I was laughing. I don't know what he's trying to do, or if it's just like he's button mashing just for like something to do. I do the same thing, so I understand that. But yeah, he's looking towards game 2 at this point. He's got like a 4 health Dragonite sitting on the field, so obviously there's no way he's winning this game.
Yeah.
But I think that you kind of see the problem with like Mousehold plus offense lead is it like it's very difficult, and even if you're like hitting with super effective moves into the partner or like a Specs Dazzling Gleam from the Flutter main is still not doing a lot of damage to the partner Mousehold, and you're kind of like forced to use spread moves when it's sitting there.
Yeah, it's a lot more difficult to break through that kind of thing. Like, especially if you think about Assault Vest Dragonite, that thing is very bulky. Like, even without multi-scale, and especially after you Terra Flying to kind of drop that ice weakness, like, the Terra Icy Wind did what, like 20, 25?
Not enough.
Yeah,
Simply
so it's like coming from Iron Bundle, that's something they have definitely expect to do more damage. So Friend Guard pulling a lot of weight, especially given Super Fang. Like, he Super Fanged once or twice, and neither of them connected, but even then, like the ability to have that option, like combining Super Fang with anything, like it would combo with anything but the Iron Bundle on the same turn. So having that pseudo offense in your support slot, I think, is a massive boon there.
Yeah, and you can do kind of the same thing with Population Bomb, but then giving up Friend Guard is a little. I don't know that you
giving up Friend Guard and like probably goggles for safety for wide lines. Yeah.
But yeah, Super Fang is really cool. It just has so many moves, and you can compress so much value into such a small mouse size.
Yeah, well, especially because we saw Baby Doll Eyes as well into the Dragonite.
Yep.
Which is another really cool. I think Raghav had that too over like the Helping Hand slot. But Collin has Helping Hand, which I think I'm more partial to, but I just really like that move.
Yeah, and it has like taunt and U-turn,
encore,
and, like, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of annoying stuff.
So we're gonna go into game 2 here, and one of the things I think Jake said when we were talking about the matchup was how good Fluttermane does into pretty much everything, with the exception of like Mousehold, so that it's a little sticky if you like are trying to Shadow Ball. And that is exactly the dynamic that we're kind of looking at here on turn 1, which is like, sure, it would be cool to Shadow Ball into Golden Go there, but there is a normal type on the field that redirects, so that you have to choose your move very carefully.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to say straight away, like, Collin chose it pretty boldly. and like,
no fear.
Aurelien's was safe-ish here. Like, you know it's Specs Fluttermane. Part of me thinks, like, why do you not just double protect to, like, see what it locks into? Because if you get a play like that wrong, like, the game kind of just ends. Like, obviously it's not over just yet, but, like, you're starting off the game 4v3, and all you get is knowing the Fluttermane is locked into Shadow Ball.
I think it's just so, like, it's so hard to Shadow Ball there.
Especially
when you're down a game. Like, there are no players that do that.
it is a huge call from Collin, and it obviously gets it right. Because like the cost of getting that wrong is you do no damage, and they probably get a nasty pull out. Like, I imagine that's what you're going for that turn if you're Aurelien. But
yeah, and I mean even a Terra Steel covers that, a Follow Me covers that.
Yeah.
Like a double protect covers that. It's just like, like what are the set of circumstances where you get that right? But anyway,
I don't know. Right, I think if you're like, I think of the possible scenarios, I imagine a double protect might come before like a Follow Me in terms of likelihood.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, but
so,
I think, yeah.
Because in that case, a double protect means you just like. It's a neutral turn, not neutral because you are behind a little bit, knowing that you're locked into Shadow Ball, but you can play out of that. Whereas if you Shadow Ball into like a Follow Me, then it's just kind of
right.
Yeah.
Either way, it seems like if you were to show me these 4 Pokemon on turn 1, I would not have expected.
No,
is the point that I'm making, and it's like an insane play that Collin made, and it's also kind of like a one-time gambit, so you know that he's not going to try it again in game 2, and he really can't try anything like approaching that level of like crazy in game 2 even.
No, especially because that's essentially just like you're betting your whole tournament life on that one turn. Yeah. And I think especially if you're Aurelien, you have less incentive to go for like a crazy play, which
for sure up a game.
And where and if you're Collin, it's a lot more of a necessity probably, but even then, like, I don't know. Well, we've talked about that turn enough.
Yeah, anyway, so yeah, getting into turn 2 here, it's like Collin, after taking that knockout, like honestly finds himself in not a very good position on turn 2.
Yeah.
Because he is locked into Shadow Ball, which is tricky, so he's like kind of like forced to recycle Flutter Mane here. And decides that the thing that's going to take the damage is King Gambit, and it immediately is not very long for this world.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a smart Super Fang. Like, there's no way Collin leaves that in again. I mean, there's no way he did what he did turn 1 either, but that's neither here nor there at this point. All right, so you guarantee that damage because, like, if the Flutter Mane's not going to stay in most times. And, I mean, I think that's a fine close combat, too. Like, you just want to get rid of Mouse Hold, and I don't blame him for that.
Yeah, and he's gonna Earthquake and take 1 knockout.
Yeah.
Wait, doesn't he? I think he gets Mouse Hold too, doesn't he?
You would have to crit.
I'm trying to remember, but either way, he's knocking out King Gambit, which we kind of talked about. There you go. Yeah. So which we talked about beforehand, which is like a really good Pokemon into this matchup, especially like Terrifying King Gambit is just like the hardest check to not Ice Spin or Great Tusk that you can have. Yeah. So I think you're probably even considering going for like a Terra Flying there, but that also leaves you weak to like Super Flying plus close combat because you could that could have potentially just been a close combat.
Yeah, and plus I think given that you're going to get a Super Fang off on the Great Tusk there most likely, you don't really need the like Flying King Gambit to like stomach an attack. You can just break in Flutter Mane and do that. Like half is probably range for helping him Gleam even through Front Guard, so
yeah, I think it's the right play, but it's a consideration, I guess, is the point that I'm making because of how good it is specifically into the Tusk. But then you're already at half anyway, and with Dragonite into the back, flying isn't... It's not so great to be flying anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of like the game plan that Jake was sort of talking about before the set, which is like, if you get like enough momentum going with Flutter Mane, it can definitely just like run over Aurelien's team.
Yeah, I mean, that's as soon as the Golden Go went down, like that's what was going to happen. There was pretty much no stopping that Flutter Mane anymore unless Collin made some pretty poor choices.
Right. But from Aurelien's side, you can kind of see like in the way that Collin was like forced to deal with it in game 2, that the Golden Go plus Mouse Hold is like kind of a problematic combination into his team.
Yeah. I think this is a good adjustment though. Like Great Tusk is something that uniquely threatens Golden Go Mouse Hold, given like Earthquake is a thing. So I respect that mix up a lot, especially because your Sash, like Sash Great Tusk, I think is a phenomenal cleaner, but you can also lead it pretty safely, especially into a team without Intimidator like Will-O-Wisp or anything. Because like in most cases, you're going to get an attack off, like no matter what, on turn 1 if you're leading it, should you want to. Like, but you would have to have something next to it that's like entirely pressureless and also like commands no attention like at all, for them to like immediately double target it and you get nothing out of it, I would say.
Right. And with this position that he leads here with the Dragonite, and it's got Tailwind here, that gives you the opportunity to even like attack again on turn 2, which is I think like extremely valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I believe, what's gonna happen is Collin is gonna like constantly lock into Terra Ground Earthquake, and at this point he's just got like I don't know what we would call online like the Chad momentum going here, where he's like he locked into that huge play turn 2 and he's like, let's go, let's do it again, we're going game 3, and he goes ahead and just like for his confidence dodges a Super Fang and just launches this Earthquake.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's like such a Chad play. I feel that's a pretty normal, not normal, but that's.
I mean, it's what you're always doing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't
like
know if
the body language is different, you know.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know that you always need to Terra there, because with Friend Guard, it's probably reasonable to assume that the Golden Go's not getting knocked out, and the crit with Terra didn't even knock out the Mouse Hold. But even then, like dodging Super Fang is obviously great there because now you have Great Tusk in Tailwind, as opposed to no Great Tusk in Tailwind with your Terra gone, and like you're in so much of a better spot because of that. But I feel like that's a very fine play regardless, because if you don't get the Tusk, like if you lose the Tusk that turn, you just bring in Flutter Mane, and now the Golden goes in range for like Gleam plus anything else.
Everything's a Gleam. Yeah, you just Gleam for the rest of the game, right? Cause, the Pokemon he's been bringing are Bundle, which like you always get to attack at least once into Bundle, while it like Icy Winds you unless you get Frozen, and then Dragonite, which is potentially taking super effective damage depending on whether or not. So yeah, as long as you get the one Earthquake off, like you were saying, like the one attack that you can guarantee puts these two Pokemon in range of like everything else on Collin's team.
Yeah, I think the issue now is that because the Tusk is still in the field, like the Bundle kind of just does whatever it picks something to knock out this turn. and there's not really a whole lot you can get out of the Dragonite unless you can like cheese the mouse hold with extreme speed to knock it out. But I think it's smart of Aurelien to not let that happen because Friend Guard is so valuable here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being able to have Friend Guard in the back, especially if it's like you want to switch it into one slot, like you switch it into the bundle slot on an Icy Wind or something, so that the Tough survives the turn, or like one of those kinds of plays where you can provide some sort of like passive defensive. But like I said, the defensive backbone of the team is Mousehold right now, is Friend Guard.
Well, and I guess Aurelien
you
trades
leave those kind of plays open.
Yeah, he trades keeping Friend Guard up for the Sash on Great Tusk, which is actually huge for Collin, because like Bundle or Fluttermane could knock it out from wherever at this point. So that's something that you do have to give up if you're Aurelien there. But I think even regardless, like Friend Guard is probably going to come into play with like a Freeze Dry calc on the bundle. If you just look at where it's at, like one Freeze Dry may have been enough, whereas with Friend Guard, certainly not.
It's not,
yeah. Tailwind ending here, this is like kind of rough, I think, if you're Collin, especially because like the speed tie with the bundles here is pretty impactful. Like given the Fluttermane is probably bulky and not like max speed, the Tusk definitely outspeeds a -1 Fluttermane. So you pretty much have to win the speed tie if you want your Fluttermane to survive the turn. Is kind of how I'm reading it.
Well, can't you just freeze dry into the Tusk slot though, because you're both
you're right. Yeah,
so you just always get to freeze dry and click whatever with Fluttermane,
because it protected last turn, right?
Yeah, it did. Collin's bundle, or
no, the Tusk. Yeah,
they both did. Yeah. So I think you always just get to click 2 attacks here, so I think the only out is to like freeze the Fluttermane.
Yeah.
Or double protect with Tusk, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, probably. I think, well, because Aurelien still has his Terra too, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know how relevant that is. I mean, you get the
I don't think it's relevant here. Yeah.
You're right, that speed tie didn't even matter, because even the bundle could just... Both bundles just Icy Wind. Like Collin, if you're Collin, rather, you Icy Wind every time, and there's no way the Tusk can outspeed. Yeah, I think I was thinking of a different a match Collin played on stream that came down to like a super close end game. If you remember that one.
Oh, okay.
And
I think we've seen a couple of these like Bizarro bundle end games on stream before, like Toller and James.
Yeah.
Where it just like it seems to always come down to a speed tie. I was laughing. I saw a tweet from Jamie Boyd that was like, "Why aren't we just using bulky bundle? Because you lose the speed tie every time." And it kind of like makes some sense, right? It seems like you just never get it when you want to.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Collin seals this setup here in game 2 with a touch of luck and obviously like an insane play on turn 2 or game 1 of turn 2, which is. I don't know. It was just like mind blowing to watch, and I have like someone that's kind of like a little iffy on pop offs a lot of the time. But like if you're gonna pop off, that's the time to do it.
Honestly, that is like the most appropriate time for a pop off, is a read that big that you get like entirely right. That was nasty.
In a win and in match at an international championship, like come on.
Yeah, I think either way, like Collin's turn 1 in games 2 and 3 were like huge. I think even regardless of the Super Fang dodge, like having that lead set up if you're Collin going into game 3 with the like Tusk into Golden Go Mousehold is so good, because like nothing on Aurelien's team wants to switch into that. You have a you have a guaranteed Tailwind setup. You can possibly like, because what did the Mousehold baby doll eyes that turn? Is that what happened?
In which turn?
On turn 1 of game 3.
Game 3, no, it missed a Super Fang.
Oh, duh. Yeah, I knew that. I was thinking, like, even with the baby doll eyes, like, you get a bunch of damage off there. But yeah, had the Super Fang connected, you do lose the Tusk, but Flutter just comes in and you, like, you do 1,000,000 damage with Dazzling Gleam a turn earlier. Like, I don't know, because Collin, like, after the Tusk went down, Collin brought in Bundle instead, but I think in that scenario, the Flutter is way easier to bring in, because there's 3 turns of Tailwind left, and you don't have to worry about the like bundle on Aurelien's end, like getting 1 Icy Wind and protecting off to like save, or I don't know. I don't think the miss. I don't know.
I think you could bring in either, right? Because then you're not even thinking about bundle speed ties, because Tailwind's up, so you just always get to Icy Wind the other bundle.
Yeah. I
don't know. There were a lot of ways to win the game, I think. But yeah, I just like the game 2 still jumps out, which is just like that was the highlight of the match for me. Yep.
For sure.
So yeah, that was really cool, and I think Collin went on to finish top 8 there.
Yeah.
Before the tournament was eventually won by Palafin, which we were all very excited to watch. So yeah, that was cool. And we also, as you know, were not on last week because I was on vacation. I will not apologize, but because I was on vacation, we're going to bring back-to-back episodes. So immediately, and by immediately I mean 7 days on the heels of this episode, we're going to have a Knoxville episode as well, which is, of course, the tournament that Jake was casting. So he's got very intimate knowledge of the matches that went on, and he's got some good ideas about what we're going to bring to you guys. So look for that in, I don't know, 7 days.
Roughly, give or take.
Roughly, depending on, maybe I'll go on vacation again. I don't know. So yeah, that will be out next week, and you can look forward to that. But until then, thanks so much for coming by. We appreciate you guys watching us. As always, feel free to find us on socials, Twitter. You can get into the YouTube comments. We're in like every Pokemon or BGC Discord known to man, so you can probably find us in any of the big ones. We always appreciate feedback, and we enjoy doing the project and hearing from everybody. So
yeah,
thanks again. Thanks for coming by. We'll be back next week with some Knoxville stuff, and after that, I think we're getting pretty close to Season 3 territories. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Regulation C.
Regulation C territory. Yeah, so we'll see you guys next week.